On July 9, 2026, a sitting United States congressman was detained at gunpoint by Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank. Not protesters, not activists. A member of the United States House of Representatives. They blocked his car. They aimed American-made rifles at him. And when the Israeli military arrived, instead of releasing a U.S. congressman, they sided with the settlers and kept him there for over an hour. The congressman's name is Ro Khanna, Democrat from California, and what he said after he got out should concern every single American, regardless of your party.
I saw the arrogance in the eyes of those settlers, 21 and 22-year-olds with guns, laughing that they had detained us. The arrogance of those young IDF soldiers that my tax dollars are funding, having no respect for the fact that they were detaining Americans.
I'm Brandon Mace, and this is Political Lens. Here's what we're breaking down today. Number 1, exactly what happened to Congressman Khanna in the West Bank, using his own words and the testimony of the people who were there with him. Number 2, the part of this story the mainstream coverage buried. Those rifles pointed at a U.S. congressman, American-made, American-paid, your tax dollars, and the bill to stop funding those weapons canceled 3 days before this happened. Number 3, why this moment exposes something much bigger than one congressman's detention. This is about who actually controls American foreign policy, and it's not the voters. Let's break down really what happened here. Ro Khanna was on a 3-day trip to the occupied West Bank. He was visiting Palestinian communities, including a small village called Khirbet Zenuda. Now, Khirbet Zenuda matters for a reason. Its residents were forcibly displaced by violent settler raids at the beginning of Israel's war in Gaza nearly 3 years ago. Khanna wanted to see the aftermath himself. On Wednesday, July 9th, a group of Israeli settlers, armed with rifles, blocked the road his vehicle was traveling on. They didn't just stop the car, they detained the entire group. A sitting U.S. congressman, his aide Cameron Kasky, his traveling staff, held by private citizens with military-grade weapons. When the Israel Defense Forces arrived, let me be precise about this, they did not release the congressman. They did not de-escalate. Khanna's own words, when the IDF arrived, they sided with the settlers and continued our detention. Think about what that means. A foreign military, one that received $3.8 billion in U.S. aid last year alone, arrived at the scene. They saw armed civilians detaining an American lawmaker. And instead of saying, you cannot do this to a United States congressman, they joined the settlers. They moved a vehicle to block the road. Kasky, Khanna's aide, says they were held for more than an hour. They made appeals to the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. They were eventually released when officers who appeared to be police intervened, not the military. The police had to override the military and the settlers. Now here's the quote that the mainstream coverage keeps skipping over, and I want you to hear this word for word.
Being in the West Bank and in Israel is the first time that I have really been acutely aware of being brown.
Ro Khanna, born in Philadelphia, elected to Congress by the people of California, said being detained by Israeli settlers was the first time in his life he was acutely aware of being brown. A U.S. congressman, treated as less than human by armed settlers who knew exactly who he was. And the soldiers who are funded by your tax dollars backed them up. Let's zoom out because this is bigger than one congressman. Those rifles pointed at Khanna's vehicle. Khanna himself identified them. American-made assault rifles. The settlers weren't carrying locally produced weapons. They were carrying guns that trace back to U.S. defense manufacturers. Guns that are part of the $3.8 billion annual military aid package the United States sends to Israel. In plain English, American taxpayer dollars armed the people who detained an American congressman. That happened. That is the reality of where your money goes. And here's where the timing gets important. 3 days before Khanna was detained, 3 days, the House Rules Committee canceled a vote on a bill that would have ended U.S. military funding to Israel. The bill was introduced by Republican Thomas Massie. Ro Khanna was a co-sponsor. Let me say that again. A Republican and a Democrat, Massie and Khanna, introduced a bill to stop sending American weapons to Israel. The House leadership canceled the vote before it could even be debated. 3 days later, one of the bill's co-sponsors is staring down the barrel of those same American weapons. Think about what that means. They stopped Congress from voting on whether to keep funding these weapons. Then, the weapons were used to detain one of the congressmen who wanted the vote. That is not a coincidence. That is a system protecting itself. The reality is, this shouldn't surprise anyone who has been paying attention to how the Israel lobby operates in Washington. Here's what most coverage won't tell you. Ro Khanna is not some fringe voice. He's a 5-term congressman from Silicon Valley. He's considering running for president in 2028. And when he got back from the West Bank, he didn't soften his language. He didn't issue a carefully worded statement. He said the Israelis made a huge mistake. He said his tax dollars are funding soldiers who had no respect for the fact that they were detaining Americans. But here's the question that should make every American uncomfortable. Why does a foreign country's military feel comfortable detaining a U.S. congressman? The answer sits in a number: $3.8 billion every single year. And behind that number is the most powerful lobbying apparatus in Washington, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC. In the 2024 election cycle alone, AIPAC spent over $100 million to influence U.S. elections. That's more than the NRA, more than Big Pharma, and it works. The Massie-Khanna bill to cut military aid? Canceled before a vote. Representative Cori Bush lost her primary after AIPAC spent $8.5 million against her. Jamal Bowman, same thing, $14.7 million. When you challenge the funding, you lose your seat. So when a U.S. congressman gets detained by people carrying American weapons and Congress says nothing, you're not looking at incompetence. You're looking at a system working exactly as it was designed to. And this is not a Democrat issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is an American issue. Whether you're MAGA, independent, or progressive, your tax dollars armed the people who detained your elected representative. Your representative. The person you sent to Washington to represent you. Khanna said something else that didn't make the headlines. He said, "This is exactly the kind of conversation they don't want you having." He's right. They don't want you asking why a foreign military can detain a U.S. congressman and face zero consequences. They don't want you asking why a bill to stop funding those weapons got canceled before anyone could vote on it. They don't want you connecting the $3.8 billion to the rifles, to the detention, to the silence in Congress. Because once you connect those dots, you start asking bigger questions, like who actually runs American foreign policy? And the answer isn't the president. It isn't Congress. It's the same people who've been writing the checks for decades. Here's what I need you to do. Drop your take in the comments below, because this is exactly the kind of conversation they don't want you having. Whether you agree with Khanna or not, you have to ask yourself, if they can do this to a U.S. congressman, what does that mean for the rest of us? And if you want to understand the full picture of how this system works, the money, the lobby, the legislation, click the video on your screen right now. It breaks down the $3.8 billion and who really benefits from it. We will see you on the next video right here on Political Lens.